Hi, I'm Conor Byrne, and you're listening to That's What I Call Marketing, the podcast where you will hear from the leading lights in the marketing world and listen to their unique stories. Today, I am talking to Rita Kirwan, Marketing Director at Aldi. And let's face it, a bit of Irish marketing royalty. The title of this episode says it all. Rita just loves what she does, and she's exceptional at it. Rita has worked at Pernod Ricard, Largo Foods, home of the brilliant Tato, O2 Telefonica, and now at Aldi. With such diverse experience, Rita has truly a unique perspective on marketing. She's worked with big budgets, small budgets, grown unknown brands in the US, operated in the pressure cooker that is retail marketing, has seen teams through acquisitions and mergers, and has turned Aldi into a loved brand in Ireland. Today, we talk about figuring it out when you don't know the answer, asking questions, taking risks and big bets, turning a crisp character into a national icon, having skin in the game, backing yourself, sweating all your assets by bringing them together, customers, the role of sponsorship, and the qualities of a leader. I hope you enjoy this episode. Rita, thanks a million for joining me on That's What I Call Marketing. It's great to have you here.
Conor, thanks for having me. Absolute privilege, and have thoroughly enjoyed listening to all your previous guests. So thanks for being on today.
Listen, before we get into everything, and I have so many questions to ask you, just for anyone listening who may not know who you are and what your role is, just maybe give a quick introduction to Rita Kirwan.
Sure. Rita Kirwan. I started my career with Pernod Ricard, did the graduate program through Irish Distillers and IBEC, which is absolutely the wonderful graduate program that I highly recommend to everybody. Before that, I studied economics in Trinity, so maybe people wouldn't know that in terms of my background as well.
Yeah.
Economics and business, so love all the numbers and the measurement as well. But my job. And from there, from Pernod Ricard and learning the trade in the States, I really enjoyed listening to Johnny Call in terms of all about, where you learn your trade and the art of advertising. And I certainly learned mine in the States with Pernod Ricard. And from Pernod Ricard, then came back home and had the absolute pleasure of working with Raymond Coyle and Largo Foods and the Coyle family with Tato Park and Tato. And there into O2. Again, just, such a beautiful corporation with Telefonica. Having the pleasure working with Aisling Telliard and taking over from some of the guests that you have had on the podcast before, and learning the trade there from B2B to B2C to sponsorships and everything that O2 was famous for. And then from O2 into discount retail. And so kind of I've always enjoyed working on the brands that were maybe smaller in the category. So the likes of Jameson, really, really winning against kind of global players. Tato obviously going against the Goliaths of Walkers, and how do you beat them with much smaller budgets? O2, I guess, was one of the big players, but again was obviously going against other bigger brands in kind of prepay space. So how do you do that? And then in discount retail, how can you make that mainstream? So that's kind of been a little bit about me.
Brilliant. And such wonderful brands and fascinating stories. I actually didn't know, I don't think I knew about the Pernod Ricard work. So that was that all based in the States, and then you working on the Jameson brand?
That was the graduate program. So that is out of college, Irish distillers who still do that, take on their graduates and place them around the world. And that's really an opportunity to showcase Irish brands, Irish businesses as well. In this case, it was Jameson. But at the time, we were, really kind of about 300,000 cases. Now it's in the millions.
Right.
And that was also then while I was there, I was fortunate enough to be offered a job in Chicago working on all their brands. And that was really a lesson in learning all about cultures and diversity. So it was working on Seagram's Gin and Juice in Michigan and in Detroit and Chicago, while also, say, working on the Glenlivet and Chivas Regal. So going from brands that had very different segmentations in African American markets, Hispanic markets, to really premium mainstream markets. So that's how you do global brands with global brand owners, but also do very local marketing.
I'll touch on that a minute, because I think that's a really interesting challenge that a lot of marketers can face, which is the global local thing, right? And so, you often hear we're different, we behave differently, but then there's so many commonalities. How did you approach that, or what was the process that at that time that they went through to kind of approach the global local and getting it right?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because in Dublin, obviously the strategy would be coming out, and the brand strategy, the brand tone of voice, the brand guidelines. But equally, when you have amazing brand owners, which you have with Irish Distillers and Pernod Ricard, all the new products that were coming out from Irish distillers and being brought to the US, you were really trained in terms of how to grow these amazing products, these amazing brands, and then grow Irish whiskey, really grow the whole category, which is what they've managed to do. But equally work with, the right local partners. So they're really focused on having the right local partners. But I guess one story when I was thinking of this always kind of comes to mind. I think I was about 2 weeks into my graduate program in Irish Distillers, and my boss at the time said to me, can you give me a report on the shipments and the depletions? And I went, what are shipments and depletions? I just said, no problem. Eat it. But I often laugh till this day. I'm like, what is a shipment and what is a depletion? And I'm sure people listen, if there's anybody listening on the Pernod Ricard side, they'll know it. But my lesson when I look back on that is, just always to say yes. Just always say yes and you'll figure it out. And there was, wonderful people that explained it to me, but always say yes no matter what you're asked. Always put your hand up to help, especially when you're starting off. And then, I used to always look at, Donna Lane was marketing director at the time, and I remember thinking, I want his job. I want to be marketing. About 2 weeks into my graduate program, but I want Donna's job. That's the job I want, and how to get there. So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful learnings from a graduate program, and amazing brand owners and amazing partners.
That's incredible. And I think that, like the curiosity, is key. As I've spoken to a lot of people for the podcast, I hear that curiosity. So, somebody comes to you and says shipments and depletions, you were clearly curious enough to go, I'm going to go figure this out, because, it's not, we were just saying, not going to come to me, right? Like I have to go find a way.
Yeah, you have to go figure it out. And then equally, you have to have an awful lot of self-initiative. So with the likes of Jameson, or when they send their graduates over to all different countries, it's really going to be up to them in terms of what you make it. So you'll have to go out and create different programs for the brands and different ideas for the brands. And I guess be brave is maybe the other thing that I was kind of thinking. You've really got to be brave. You've really got to take the risks. You've really got to out. But once you do, then you get that back in spades. I get another story that I often laugh about. Again, it was with Jeff Agdern, who was a truly iconic part of the Jameson story in the States. I think it was my first meeting with him, and I asked him, why did you put that ad on that page in the magazine?
Okay.
Why did you put that ad? Why was it on that page? It was maybe really my first foray into really asking all the questions and understanding and planning and thinking. So, tons of learnings there.
Yeah. And I think that's, kind of just even wanting to know that is fascinating, right? Because some people are like, oh, there's the ad on that page. But like you were kind of like, oh, why? Like that, there's more to it. So you said you came back to Ireland and worked with Largo Foods. And I think you worked on probably one of the country's most loved products, as in potato crisps. But I think you probably turned it into one of the country's most loved brands. Would that be fair to say? You may not say yes to that, but I think you did, right? Because there was some phenomenal work that went on at that time. Can you tell me a bit about what that move was like? So, from Pernod Ricard, Irish Distillers, into more of kind of a family-led organization, really strong, beloved product. What was that like, that move for you?
The move was really when you've been trained by the best of the best, that I kind of felt I was with Pernod Ricard. Then can you really back yourself and believe yourself to go and really lead the brand? So get out of the big multinationals with all the resources and go and take a chance on this. But this wasn't any chance. This was working with possibly, you know, the greatest entrepreneur that Ireland will ever see in Raymond Coyle. Really was just one of a kind. And Raymond just would always back you. He always kind of gave you a chance. And aside from that, with Tato, there was an army of people that really wanted to bring Tato back. A few of them, you know, really come to mind. The first one is Orla Blaney.
Yeah.
Who Anne Erickson at the time, and who came up with the idea for Mr. Tato's autobiography, The Man Inside the Jacket. You know, 60,000 copies. And people thought we were totally nuts writing, you know, a full fictional book, and then getting it to number one, you know, and selling 60,000 copies. And when I think back to that, there was so much fun and so many key learnings. But one on that one from Raymond was, you know, have a share in it. So Raymond gave me 50 cents for every book I sold. Amazing. Well, talk about selling books. You know, I had no idea how to write a book, print a book, barcodes for books, but I figured out pretty fast how to sell the books. So, and it was something Damien Giovanni spoke about in his, in terms of, you know, it has to be a win-win on both sides. So that was part of it. But aside from that, on the book, Mr. Tato had a Bebo profile. No, I think of Geraldine O'Leary. She put Mr. Tato on the in the late, you know, so he was on there. I think of Joe Murphy. We went to his family and we went backwards. You know, you went back and you uncovered every photograph and every story. I was in every closet and every press and every cupboard there was in the building as soon as I walked in. And Louis Copeland did, you know, my favourite, possibly still my favourite ad, when he dressed Mr. Tato.
Oh, yeah.
And Louis wrote the script himself, you know, and he said, you know, your money's no good around here, Mr. Tato. And there was so many people. I think of David Snedden, who was in Mindshare at the time. There was so many people that wanted to really resurrect that brand.
Yeah.
And then move it into 3D world. And whether he had, you know, he ran for election and we thought he was going to get elected. And we thought, you know, he can't get elected. We need to just encourage people to vote. So he did that. He was, you know, he did a factory tour. He did a book. And, you know, I was listening to your other one with Debbie Millman and how some of her work still lives on. And I guess when the amazing work that Tato Snacks continues today, I still see some of the animation and some of the work living on. And really that's all we can do in marketing in terms of, you know, see the work a couple of years on. But, you know, I still love Mr. Tato.
I'll tell you a very quick story. We were up at the park a good few years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and we had the kids with us, and Mr. Tato came out. You know, we do kind of taking photos, and my wife just turned around and she just went, "It's Mr. Tato!" Like the excitement, and like she was doing it for the kids, but it was just so funny. But it has that. It was brought. He was brought to life. It became more than the product, then the crisps. It became kind of, you know, this person that people could really like. But what was for me, I was, you know, wondering about that as well. Kind of, I can only imagine that Raymond Coyle was definitely someone who cared about the numbers and hitting the numbers and the product selling. Was it a hard sell to talk to him and others about we're gonna make the character kind of really stand out and be our brand, you know, mascot in real life, and as you call it, 3D?
It's a really good question. With Largo Foods at the time, you had one shot, right? That budget, that brand had one shot, and you were really betting everything on that one shot.
Wow.
Okay, so we were putting about €1 million behind that brand for the year. So it was the campaign for the year when we were doing the book. Largo Foods had just bought the brand. You know, it had never done a campaign that big, and it was a risk. It simply had to work. You know, it just had to work. So when it's again, so when you go into the board and you explain, you know, you're wanting to do an autobiography. At the time, the board were like, I don't know, I've read the book, I'm not so sure. We printed a couple of copies. They were like, I don't know. Raymond, being Raymond, would always say, you know, what do you think? And let's do some research on it. We gave the book to friends and families and got the feedback on it. And then me and Raymond agreed if it hit a certain score from the research that we sent out, we went for it.
Right.
maybe another example in that, when Orla Blaney and McCann's were making the TV ad, we wanted the wonderful voice of the late Don Fontaine, where he says, in a world, and you just get goosebumps. And I remember asking Raymond, I said, Raymond, I need Don Fontaine on this. I need this book to feel like the biggest book in history. I need the greatest voice, the greatest trailer voice ever for this book. And the fees at the time were 15,000 for that voiceover. And I remember, which was a huge amount for voiceover. And I remember Raymond saying to me, we're not spending that for one 30-second ad for a guy to record the voice. And I ran down the stairs to Raymond and I said, Raymond, I'll split it with you. I'll pay half. But we have to get him. So when you want something and you believe in it that bad, that it's the right thing to do and you fight that hard for it, well, then you will. And I mean, really put your own skin in the game.
Yeah.
I don't think I had 7,500 at the time, but I think I was praying that Raymond wouldn't take it. But I knew if he knew that I wanted it that bad, and I committed to always putting the right people on the job, on whatever that job was. And of course, Raymond would never have accepted it, but he did agree to Don Fontaine, and we created just a beautiful piece that made the book. It's probably still in print to this day. So,
yeah, it's amazing. I think, am I right in saying, did it beat? Was it Bertie Ahern's autobiography? There was a really big one that it bet. I can't remember.
Yeah, it beat everything. It was number one. 6 weeks, and the irony was that we got a non-fictional character in the non-fictional section, so that was it. But equally amazing partners in Argosy and in all the bookshops, and we did book tours. So Mr. Tato went book tours and book signings all the way around. It was just incredible people that we had, from Frank Kelly and a wonderful PR. It's how to do PR, but equally you do it yourself. At the time, I was doing all the social media for Mr. Tato, so I was Mr. Tato's voice. Okay. So you kind of did everything, but it was a once in a lifetime opportunity, really. So, and every time I see a packet of Tato or Mr. Tato, I still can't but love it.
Yeah, you can't. And anyone listening who's not in Ireland, Tato is definitely the beloved crisp brand, and maybe remiss, obviously, not to mention Raymond Cole passed away not so long ago. Huge loss, and we were lucky enough to work with his daughter actually, when she was going to the Olympics. So I mean, I only ever met her. Wonderful person, so only speaks to the family that she's from. Yeah,
and it tagged over the social media for a long time too, which was wonderful. So the whole family really lived and breathed that brand and that business, and was such guardians of it. So the legacy would have gone. And Tato Park, now Emerald Park, is there today. So and just a wonderful experience for the whole family to go to. So, but it's not every day you get to work on a theme park like Raymond's ideas. Yeah. From one to the next, would we call it Tato Park? What would we call Tato Town, Tato World? It was just an incredible journey. And I miss him. I miss him, dear friend too. I miss him as an advisor and as a coach, and the crack and the stories. And Raymond's just always made everything fun.
That's wonderful to have had that experience. To work with something like that is a rare thing to get. And obviously, you got to do amazing work. And that was fame. Before we were probably using that sort of language, that was fame. That was what Paul Feldwick could talk about, Barnum, and that's what that is, and it's wonderful to see it. So from there, you went to O2. I mean, that's very different.
Yeah, it's very different, very, very different. So from O2, this was again kind of always encouraging people how you do base management. So that was also when you're, in Ireland, we've got so many services, but how do you manage and grow a base? So how do you do prepay business, postpay business? How do you do a business that is in large part commoditized in terms of selling data or selling reselling data or selling phones? And how do you do B2B? And then how do you do sponsorships and really link all that together and really differentiate itself? With O2, again, you learned everything about brand as well. Like they do brand bubbles and blue and tone. just better than anybody, and it was really a beautiful corporation. You also learned really working in such a big organization, managing high performance and creating high performing teams. And that was Aisling Telliard led the people side, and really how you do create a culture within a team to succeed. And you had Catherine Lonergan, who was just a genius in retention and acquisition and understanding that, while understanding technology. So that was when you were doing kind of wallet products, and really trying to keep your finger on the pulse was really one thing that I wanted to learn from O2 and that I took away with.
Yeah, and you went to, obviously it was a bigger team there, right, in O2. So how did you navigate that? Because that's a change, but maybe from your Pernod Ricard days, you were kind of used to working in those big structures.
Yeah, that's a great question. Great question. So when you work on the small businesses, the entrepreneurial businesses, then you work in the international businesses, but then you go to global like that. And I guess the honest answer on that was I worked very closely with a lady called Maureen Hewitt and the Positive Success Group. And that's really to ensure that, you always have a coach when you need the coach to really just help you do that transition. Sure you take the best parts of so you have the speed and the decision making and the agility and the risk and all of that comes from working with a small entrepreneurial business, and then how you fit that into a global corporation. So and we had, again, there was wonderful partners, wonderful sponsorships, and again, I guess the first thing I did was always look back to the amazing work that O2 had already created.
Yeah, no, beautiful brand and had done some great work. But during your time there, what were the campaigns that you look back on fondly that you really love?
Yeah, my favorite one there was the big ad for small business, which was done by Happy Feckers, and it was a B2B piece of business. So we were trying to get small businesses that might have had one product with O2. How could you get them to have 2 or 3 products with O2? So Happy Feckers agency came up with the idea to win an ad. So O2 would pay for the ad for the small business and promote it. And better still, Brian O'Driscoll would be in the ad for the small business. So a very small business would have an opportunity with Brian O'Driscoll. And that was incredibly successful in terms of growing the fixed line sales. So getting fixed line business from the small businesses. So that would be one. That'd be one that was really using sponsorships, but using all the product, and then really added an awful back. That one, and there was numerous rugby ones as well, which were fabulous. And in O2, you learn loyalty. You learn, how do you do loyalty? Nobody did it really better at the time than O2 Priority. So how do you drive that, which is also, another really key part of the whole marketing plan.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, I love that where you bring stuff together, because sometimes you can find that, in larger organizations and marketing organizations, things can sit so separately, the B2B and the small business and the sponsorships, and they don't necessarily all speak to each other brilliantly. And that's a really great example of where you kind of were sweating all the different assets to kind of create something that was impactful and driving commercial results.
Yeah, that one really did work for us, and we gave over the shop windows too to all the local businesses. So
lovely.
On Grafton Street, Blanchardstown Shopping Centre, where everything from childcare to photography businesses. So celebrating the local businesses, celebrating the communities, really celebrating the local people that were making a difference, and that was really what it was all about at the time. And the campaigns they ran many years before me.
That's right. You were there. Were you there during the transition when 3 came in and acquired the business? And how was that? That must have been a very interesting time with just transition and the team.
Yeah, the team being the most important. So that was obviously, it took in order for the approval of the acquisition. There was a year maybe in terms of while we were waiting for approval from the European Commission. So managing a team and leading a business when they know it's going to be sold was definitely you kept the focus on doing what your job was, which was maintaining that base, ensuring that you were going to hand it over as good as not better as you could to Three Mobile, to Hutchinson Whampoa, and share all the learnings that you could. But how do you transition from a really loved brand in Ireland, which was O2,
Yeah.
in transitioning from 1 to 2? And they did a super job, and they've done it, and you can see it today in the market. So the most important part of that was really clarity of communication across the teams, the processes. I'd gone through their acquisitions before with Pernod Ricard, so it would just had to be all about the people and looking after the team, and ensuring whatever people wanted. If they wanted redundancy, they got it. If they wanted to stay, they had the opportunity to stay. If they wanted to move into other areas, they had the opportunity to do that. So it was a really collaborative process, quite a long process, but one that worked out for everybody in the end, thankfully, on the team.
It's great, because I think that is, the uncertainty, I think, is probably the piece that people, what is the future looking like? And then how do people keep focused on doing something now, so I think that's really interesting, to kind of saying, look, we need to hand this over, continue this going. I mean, there could have been a scenario where it didn't pass through the regulations and all the approval. So, who doesn't want the business to be successful there? Was that part of how you kind of managed that immediate term and, while looking after people at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you had to manage all the transition from, O2 is now 3, and then even from the customer. Well, what does this mean? What does it actually mean for me and my new contracts? What happened? So all the clarity and the communications was hugely important. The O2, which we would have known it at the time, obviously changed through Arena, so sponsorship changes, storage, just so much different branding and work to be done as well. That was a big part of it. But the most important thing, as you said, was just the communication with the team and what it means for them and whatever they wanted. So fascinating to go through such a large merger, and yeah.
Exhausting?
Exhausting? Never. And marketing, I don't know. I think we're all more challenges, but that was a great one. It was also a PR challenge, because there was questions coming from media all the time as well. So challenge in every angle, but no, there can never be too few challenges.
That's so true. That's so true. You went on to Aldi then, and I think when you joined Aldi, had they been in Ireland for about 15 years at that point? Am I right? They were kind of...
Yeah, so back to like 1999, and really when I joined, they had about 8.5% share. 12 now, so much smaller at the time. But really, again, now they've managed to just bed themselves into the whole Irish community, and really they've become a loved brand, a loved mark in terms of being the champion of the Irish people now, in terms of people just raving about whether it's the steaks or the candles or what is the Aldi product, the face cream, the wine, what is it that they actually have to have and that they love. So everybody has their Aldi products that they just want to tell everybody about. So that's been a wonderful journey and story, from helping Food Cloud and food waste, to working with Bernardo's, to sponsorship partners, the amazing IRFU and Live Nation, to incredible suppliers. So that is every angle of the marketing side, I guess.
What were the kind of the biggest challenges when you arrived that you needed to focus on first?
I think it was trust. So you really wanted to build trust, and you wanted people to say and be proud of, where. So are they proud to carry the bag? Are they proud to walk around with the shopping bag, or were they going into Aldi with another bag, but but not necessarily bring it? So turning that around to, wow, Aldi is a brand for me. Or I think it was maybe an Irish thing where they love to say, where did you get it, or where did and they would say, oh, it's only €5, it was only 2 years. So really becoming part of the market, that, I got it in Aldi, you won't believe it, you have to try this in Aldi, or and really kind of winning Christmas. So something would people trust Aldi for Christmas? And that was where, came up with Kevin the Carrot numerous years ago, 6-7 years ago, with the incredible Adams of Alice in Aldi UK. So that was how can you win Christmas? Will people buy their Christmas turkey from you? Will they trust you for it? And will they tell their friends about it? Will they, will it be part of their whole family? So they were kind of some of the challenges. I was the first marketing director in Aldi in Ireland. So that was probably the first things we have to do, try to continue to do, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I think that moment of, where's that from? That's Aldi. Oh wow, and there's still that kind of, but less as a surprise now. It's more of I need to go get one. That's for me, that's the shift. I think you're right. It was kind of, would people think to shop there, and now it's, what are the things I can get there, right? It's a very different. Do you measure those kind of shifts in perception, or I guess it shows at the till, but what are the key things you measure and you obsess about?
Yeah, we measure everything. I measure everything, and maybe that's the economics background in me, but I measure everything and it can be a simple thing as measuring a social media post in terms of what the engagement was and what the sentiment was, to whether we're measuring using System 1 to measure any of the ads that we've scored, to whether we're doing any econometrics modelling from Circana to Kantar. We measure everything, and it's really ensuring, Andrew Barling works with this now. It's ensuring what's the story that's all telling, and what's the story that is telling in conjunction with the sales. And really, we all work in marketing. It has to drive sales.
Yeah.
It's got to drive them fairly fast. And certainly going back to my Tato days, you don't have the luxury of time when you're in small businesses and maybe money is tight, and you have to have some quick wins, and it has to be fast, and you've got to get the money coming in. So I measure everything religiously, and then ensuring that's also clear and sent up so that the business or that the board understand what is working. In some cases, it might be a slow burn. In others, obviously, you can see it fairly fast, depending on what the specific campaign is or activity is. But and then also, in marketing, a lot of things are cyclical. So you've kind of got to really say, well, what are the learnings? What did we get right? What can we add on? What can we layer? What can we do better next time? So that would be, measure everything.
And is there then kind of or how are you having discussions around the different types of campaigns that you have? Because clearly there's campaigns that are around, what's in store this week, what are the offers? Then there's the more, brand building, whether it's Kevin the Carrot, the sponsorships. How are you having those conversations with the board, and how it ties back to then the business outcomes?
Yeah, I think you'll always measure things like, is this a brand for me? So really, ultimately, is this a brand for me? Have I connected with it emotionally, rationally? Is it a brand for me? Is one that I will obsess with. Inspiration is another one. So if I'm not considering shopping or buying or going to your product or service, I'm probably not likely going to buy it. They would be two that I would totally obsess with. Reputation is another. Aldi just won most reputable retailer a few weeks ago. So reputation is key. Really, what is that, especially in today's world where everything is so transparent. And people really care about the people that are leading the organizations. They care about the values of the organization, and they care about the ethics. They care about the sustainability. So those factors, they're the big brand ones. Equally, you will care about what are the key drivers that affect people's decision making. And it can be anything from the economy to inflation to, value and prices. And it could be all different things that you have to take into consideration. And then ultimately, make a decision on what you're going to do and what you're going to go out with, and back it and stick with it and back it. And you need to give it time to allow the things to build and to allow them to work.
I'm fascinated as well by how you gather customer insights, because there's huge obviously amount of data about what people are doing, to say, in the shop, at the tills, but how are you speaking to customers? Are you in the stores? Are you watching their behavior? I find that fascinating. So I'd love to hear your approach to customer insight.
you can never beat talking to customers. You can never beat talking to customers. You can never beat being in store, especially on retail. You can never beat hearing the story. So we will obviously always do the quant and qual work that all the other brands will do, but there is nothing to beat hearing stories, watching videos back, listening to them, in some cases living with them. I know I was listening to Johnny in terms of how he followed people around or live with them and follow them, how they shop, what's in their shopping basket, go shopping with them, what's in their fridge, what's in their house, what's their day, what's the occasions they need to, to fill, be it to bring the kids to football or back to school, or really understanding the behavior, but maybe more so understanding how people want to feel. So in today's world, people still want to feel that they're giving their family their best, that they can afford to give them the best, that they are doing the best, whatever that is for them, and that you've always, as a brand, got to demonstrate that you understand them, and not talk about it, but demonstrate that you understand them and help them and support them, and that'll come in loads of different forms. And I think always, you can't beat your family for honesty. Once you break a campaign, your family will always fairly fast whether they like it or it's going to work or it's not going to work, or they've seen it 10 times before, or you've copied somebody. So you'll always get instantaneous feedback from friends and family, good and bad, that you have to take too.
Yeah, that honesty you can't beat, really.
No, and it never stops. Never stops forthcoming. So it's always grateful for that, and I'm thankful in Aldi. People always write about different products. So and then they become your ambassadors. So in some ways, that's where the insights come from, in terms of, you want to create so many brand advocates and brand ambassadors, and that's certainly what's happened with Jameson as well. I nearly said Jameson, which was the American way they used to say it, but call it Jameson. I was like, Jameson, but that's what happened on that brand.
Yeah, but and just on that, the advocates piece, it is kind of interesting. I did hospitality management going way back. I told you I had a bit of a roundabout way to get here, but I remember in our lectures, and this goes back pre-social media, but the lecturer used to say that people having that experience in a restaurant or a hotel were the ones that were going to go out and tell people. But interestingly enough, his view was it's the ones that had the bad experience would talk more and louder than the ones that had the positive experience. So you need so many more of the positive advocates to kind of almost balance out the negative. And I think that's probably certainly true now. Would you feel that's true in retail as well?
Yeah, you do. And especially when you're talking social media. So sometimes following things, and I'm saying measuring everything, but I would always be measuring everything. When you hear or see a negative comment, your reaction can be, oh, we need to answer this or address this or whatever. But if you leave it long enough, it usually answers itself now. So people will exactly jump in and defend and explain, whatever. And then that's when you really have created, or you have demonstrated to the people, and you've really made them understand, why you've made the decisions that you have, and that they're then answering it for you. So another one that just jumps to mind, maybe slightly different, but was the movie Air that's out at the moment. And, how did the Nike brand really back Michael Jordan, and going in and arguing for the money to just back Michael Jordan, as opposed to backing 3 or 4 other athletes at the time. And the success that had, to where Nike, the smaller brand, and Converse was the champion, but they ultimately, as a result of that partnership, bought Converse. Was another story that I really love. How the small brands can buy the big brand, the really right partnership. And I think that was one that we can take an awful lot of learnings from in marketing.
Yeah, and it's kind of just that mindset, isn't it? Kind of going back to that, how do you behave, and how do you continue to challenge? How do you create that culture in your team of, because Aldi, it's doing well and it's successful, but how do you create that sense of, we still have more to challenge for?
Yeah, I think the team, I have an incredible team of people from McCann Manchester on the creative side, and Neil Lancaster, Dave Price on that side, to right across to our own teams. People want to win. You want to win every day. It's a self-motivation and measuring, and maybe there's a competitiveness, but equally at times we will lean into the IRFU, and we've had, the wonderful Paul O'Connell come in and talk to us in terms of how you build that culture, how you succession plan, how you do strategy well, all of those things, ensuring that you're always prepared and that you know what great looks like as soon as you see it. And thankfully, the team we have today and the team I've always had, people know what great looks like, and they know themselves, and they will measure themselves. And I used to often think in this game of marketing, it's like every day you need another hit. You're looking for another hit single. You are in the hit game, and pretty fast whether you're number 1 or number 10 or you didn't make the charts.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, you definitely do need that. I was talking to somebody at the AIM Awards last week, and I was just commenting on the value of awards, right? And so I know a lot of people kind of go, yeah, awards, but I think it does create the sense of, the hit, right? And rightly so. And things like, AIMS or Cannes or what, that are done very, very well, where it's like, very well thought out, and it's hard to win. So I think there's a huge part of that, and I know some of the Aldi team were there as well. So it's great to see that. You mentioned McCann in Manchester. I'm curious to know how Aldi Ireland and Aldi UK work together, because obviously campaigns like Kevin the Carrot are across both of these markets, hugely successful campaigns. How does that operate? How do you operate that kind of global local?
I guess when I was thinking of that, I think what always makes Irish marketing teams proud is when the Irish marketing goes to the UK, or whether it goes to Europe or it goes to the States. And you can't beat seeing, Irish campaigns. And we've been lucky enough, from whether it be the Grow with Aldi campaign or the Aldi Play Rugby sticker campaign, it's also gone to the UK. So it has to be a really joint collaborative process in terms of wanting to grow the business and the brand, to take the learnings globally. So we obviously work with all the different Aldi countries, and there's learnings from the States and there's learnings from all the different markets, be it on media planning, be it on buying, be it on legal, be it on media, be it on, growth in TikTok and YouTube, and how different markets are using all these different channels. Be it Netflix, there's just so many different ways. We would work extremely closely every day, totally, total partners. Same agency, obviously, in Ireland and the UK, but Kevin the Carrot would have been done collaboratively. There's always, it has to be, which again, it would have been in O2 as well. So it's one team, I guess. It's always one team, and it goes both ways.
And that's great. So you have that opportunity to connect with and learn from other markets. I find that fascinating, because there's just things that, you won't know or think of, or, behaviors that are different. But then at the same time, consumers can often be very, very similar. And what can you take that will work in another market? I love that. I love hearing from marketers in other markets. It's great.
Yeah, it's fantastic when you see your work abroad and when you take their work. And there's times when you're, I won't lie, there's times when you're looking for campaigns and I've gone, oh my goodness, has the UK got anything that we can take and use work? And there's definitely been occasions, like that, the UK or global teams or our Australia team have had wonderful ideas with problems. And I've been very grateful that I could, borrow, or I heard a great term last night, case, copy and steal everything. There's times when you really, be really grateful for the markets already having done work, and in some cases can be much more cost efficient. And that the behaviours and consumer behaviours can be very, very similar. So there can always be work that you can share across markets.
Yeah, some of the work they did in Australia recently has been fantastic. We're like really enjoyable, humorous, but again, very Australian, right? So I think the insight around probably product and trust, and is there. You can see it, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to run it here. But wonderful work. Correct.
Yeah, the insights will be the same. So, maybe in our current case, we mightn't sell tens of thousands of products, but we will have the best category that you're looking for. So if you want to just buy the best, you could come here. But if you want to spend 20 minutes looking at tomato sauce, well, then, you'll go somewhere else. So they had, wonderful insight like that, which we gladly borrowed.
Yeah, it's so good. we talked about Kevin the Carrot a few times. What has that been like to work on? Because it's, again, I keep saying this word, hugely successful, but it has been incredibly successful. And as you say, it's really helped deliver Christmas. I mean, it has to be one of the most popular Christmas ads.
Yeah, it's one of the most effective Christmas campaign the last 2 years in a row. So that's really been a credit. But maybe it came back to my character days with Mr. Tatum, and maybe I'm working on characters. But it's all about Kevin and the family, and how can you differentiate a brand during Christmas, which is, I look to wonderful brands, Woody's and Pust, that have done, gorgeous Christmas work as well. Obviously Guinness, the amazing brands. How do you cut through at Christmas, and how do you do that as a supermarket? And that was really what the challenge was, and really differentiated and build something long term that we've managed to do. And I think in marketing it's important, if your campaigns can live 6-7 years. Aldi's done like brands, only cheaper, again, amazing work. So the brands really need to stand the test of time, and it's done that. It needed to demonstrate quality, it needed to showcase the wonderful range, it needed to build trust, and it also needed to engage, a young audience in terms of, really cut through. Lots of kids and family have all the Kevin the Carrots, and they've collected them, and they've Kevin and they've Kate. So and so do I. Even my whole high school of Kevin and Katie as well. So yeah, just a joy. And as I said, it was Adams of Alice, and that was definitely a fun one presenting to the board at the time. We need to do a animated carrot, but to the credit, they backed it. They did payment. So a wonderful board will take the risks and will back you and will trust you, and then you just can't let them down. That's our job.
But I get the impression, Rita, that so yes, they'll back you, but you're not going in with, we should do an animated carrot, right? You and the people you work with, it's more like you're going in kind of going, here's the evidence, here's here's why we think this will work. Like, how that's a huge part, I think, of what you must be doing, kind of not every day, but like for the big ones, right? Huge.
It can probably be surprised with me in terms of just the amount of organization and planning and preparation. It's just, endless. I believe you can never do enough planning. So it'll be a year. In the truth of that, we would be working on that for a year all the way through. So bringing the board and the full journey of that, and all the research that went with it, and stress testing it in terms of what it could do, it couldn't do, the risks, the opportunities, everything, full channel plans, budgets, competitor reviews, international learnings. Yeah, you would go in, wanting everybody to feel like this, the only decision that we can make is absolutely go ahead and do this, and how fast can we do it? And then equally, I think on the marketing side is you want to get everybody excited, which you did, and that's it, and have a bit of fun. So tons of planning, maybe a year in the plan.
Yeah, so not to be underestimated. With Kevin the Carrot, obviously he's extended a little bit. He was a DJ at Electric Picnic last year. I've seen that, where you built an Aldi supermarket. Sponsorships have been probably a big part of some of your roles, obviously at Aldi and O2 as well. How do you look at the sponsorship as part of your overall marketing mix, and how do you measure it?
Yeah, great question. Started with Bonside as our partner and John Trainer to measure it. So we've measured it. In some cases, we will measure the brand before we start any sponsorship. So we will measure going, what is the issues with this brand before we even start, and then try and identify what the properties would be that would fit it, that we think could do it, and then measure it as you go along, measure it every quarter. And that will be everything in terms of, if you have seen and engaged with the sponsorship, are you more likely to, shop or buy this product? And that's essentially it. But I think you have to be very clear on what the role you want the sponsorships to do. So sponsorship can do a wonderful charity job in terms of partnering with the likes of Bernardo's, in terms of really meaningfully making a difference to kids every day, in terms of helping them have a warm breakfast in the morning or a dinner in the evening, which is a key partner. It can equally embed itself in the community in terms of with Aldi Play Rugby and the sticker campaign. You've local schools winning, tens of thousands of money that's going to make a massive difference to a local community and a local school. So it can really help a brand embed itself in the local community. And equally, it can help build, reputation of a brand. So right now, obviously, we're partners with the IRFU, and Ireland is number one in the world in rugby. So that's also helping it. It can help attract different customer bases. So you need to be very clear to know what you want the brand, what you want the sponsorship to do, and then very clearly measure it and also evolve it. So, you've done everything from a range of clothes to a range of carrots. There's loads of different areas that it has to do, but be very clear on what the sponsorship's job is.
Yeah, I definitely think knowing the objectives that you have for a sponsorship are key, because some of them, you look at sponsorships and some of them are really attractive, for a load of variety of reasons, but they will not do what you need them to do. And so even I know we looked at stuff before where actually one of the things we really want to do is engage employees. And so that requires you to look at doing things in a really different way, as a sponsorship. The couple of more things I wanted to ask you, and I know we're getting close to time, and I know you've got to rush off as well. So, but I did want to just ask you about kind of how you think about performance marketing, brand building, and then the idea of double duty, where an ad can do both. There's a bit of a debate going on at the minute, and I'd love to get your views and perspective on it.
Yeah, and that's always the discussion I think you're always going to have. Maybe it's a scale, so it's determining what's the right level of investment, what's the right level of weight to always put behind those brand building campaigns, and then those shorter sales driving campaigns. And you'll study that, you'll study all those textbooks on it. I think it'll be different for different industries. It can be, if we're in O2 and you're measured every day, or you're an e-commerce business, you're going to be much harder likely on the sales side of it, maybe than more so on the brand building side of it. But if you're in the likes of the big brands, you're always going to have both, and maybe not all at the same time. So you might, there's certain times when you're even maybe, during the pandemic, that was an opportunity to build a brand, to really build a community brand, but it was also an opportunity to where you really had to be fast and agile on the ground and be able to respond. Towards now, you're in a period of inflation or people worried about costs. You've always got to be able to read the mood and respond, and know the right level of investment to put behind each of them at any one time. And again, it's back to all the metrics that you're going to have and that you're going to read, and the sales ultimately won't lie.
Yes, yeah. That's the thing. I just can't, I that sense of in retail, like just the real time nature of it, right? Because because interesting, like in B2B marketing, there's a lot of talk about 95.5. Only 5% of your customers are in market now, and the 95 aren't, and so that's why you'd want to build your brand for the longer term, because they're longer sales cycles and all that. But like in retail, people are in the shops every single day.
Yeah, and it's like Ryanair, when the plane's gone, the seat's gone, like it's it's valid again. So I think you've kind of got to think. You've got to think like that. You're always trying to drive footfall. You're always trying to get them to put one more item in the basket. That one more item you get them to put in. How do you get them to come back once more? How do you get them to switch and to trust you more into a category or product that they haven't necessarily bought? So the sales, the footfall will just will not lie. Neither will your web traffic. All of those stats and all of those measurements will kind of tell you how you're doing, and equally so will the competition. So you've really got to. I think it's great when you've got great competitors in your industry. Thankfully, I always have. When you've got wonderful competitors doing great work, you're going to learn from them, and it's only going to make you work harder, think cleverer, and make decisions, and try and do the best work you can.
Yeah, and it is a competitive space in this market, in markets like the UK as well, like a hugely competitive space. How do you think about how Aldi can differentiate itself or be more distinctive than its competitors?
I think it already has. So it really stands out for quality. It's known for quality now. It's known for its reputation. So when it wins the most supermarket, it's clearly known for that. It's known for value. So if you're looking for the best quality products at the lowest prices, well, then the only place you are going to go is Aldi. And the amount of award-winning products that they have, and being in there just to see the level of attention and detail that they give is incredible. So you want the best quality products at the lowest prices. You're not going to beat Aldi. And then while you're in there, you could pick up a paddleboard, and you could pick up a kettlebell, and you could pick up a face serum as well. So you just also can't beat that. And then so much of it is bought locally. So you want Irish strawberries first, you want new season potatoes first. Really try and buy locally and buy off local growers, so that so you get the freshest possible food that you can.
Yeah. A dog bed was my most recent, an outdoor dog bed.
Right. I bought a cat bed, and I don't actually have a cat, but we've a cat. So I got a cat bed for a cat that I don't have, but wanted to make the local cat feel comfortable. So there you go.
Among all these amazing experiences that you've had, is there any one big failure that you kind of that stands out to you and go, oh my God, like, I'm so glad that happened because I learned something incredible from it?
You'll always have things you can do better. So you'll always look back, gosh, I could have done better. We did a campaign for Velvet Crunch snacks back to Largo, and we were trying to do really clever art, and it was a brand that was just starting and didn't fully have the money, but I thought it was really creative and clever and different, and it just didn't work. So you look back and I go, at the time I maybe was allowed to do it because I had enough credit in the bank in terms, but it was one where I kind of go, it just didn't work and it just didn't pull. But equally, when you recognize that, get out of it fast. Recognize that it didn't work, move on, and take the learnings from it and go for it. Don't try and put another sticky plaster on it to make it better or cover it up. Hands up, it didn't work, I got it wrong. Let's go again. Let's take the learnings and do a better job the next time.
Yeah. Look, I think that's very important to be able to kind of say that and kind of know the mistakes and own up to it, because we all make them, don't we? Last couple of questions. You're on the board of the Rutland Centre. Can you tell me a bit about that work?
Yeah, that's incredible. So this is a centre that was established in 1978, and that really offers world-class services in addiction. So if there's anybody listening that needs help and support, either themselves or their family in addiction, a lot in the alcohol addiction or drug addiction, well, really the Rutland Centres just offers a world-class service in that space. Their recovery rates speak for themselves. So 2 out of 3 people will get recovery, and truly they make just an enormous difference to families. And then people can join back in society once they've had the support that they need. So from my side, it's an absolute privilege to work with them on the fundraising side and on the communication side. And as I said, if there's anybody that would like to support them, like to help them, absolutely get in touch. And yeah, really just absolute experts in addiction.
It's great that they have you supporting them, and I've worked in nonprofits and I know the value of having outside expertise come in and help kind of do more. So I'm sure it's much appreciated. If you weren't doing this job, I don't know if I can imagine you not doing marketing, Rita, but if you weren't, what would you do?
If I wasn't, still the dream was always Nike. I think if I could be, running Nike, I would be. Maybe running Nike is the term, exactly it, in terms of being in my runners, but maybe it was the Air movie that I recently saw. But working on amazing brands, I absolutely love what I do. I think I wanted it from day one. I know I was listening to Johnny, but having studied economics, and I traded foreign exchange in London in Bank of America for a period as well, and sat in the banks, but that wasn't for me for sure. So the creativity, the leading people, the winning, all of that on amazing brands, seeing products on the shelf. I loved hearing that from Debbie. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to Andy Nairn in terms of Lucky Generals and how he did the Hovis campaign. So working on incredible campaigns, incredible brands, and getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody. It's incredible to get to do it every day. And as you said, then if you can give back in the likes of I've worked with the Ware and worked with Bernardo's, and now have the joy of working with the Rutland. If you can give back on top of it, well, sure, isn't that what we're all here for?
Amazing. Rita, thank you so much for your time today. Absolute pleasure speaking to you. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And you clearly love what you do. And it's infectious and contagious. And I hope anyone listening who's thinking about a career in marketing even goes, oh, this is what I want to.
Yeah, this is what I want to when I grow up.
Rita, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Conor. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that episode with Rita. It was so great to hear her amazing story. And look, for me, what comes through is her absolute love of her trade. Rita adores marketing, and not in like a fluffy way. She is commercial. I get the impression that not only does Rita obsess about the metrics, she knows them top of mind. I would say for a CEO and board, she is a dream marketer. You have someone who loves what they do, so that's going to filter through to the team. Someone who knows what good work is and can get there, and someone who's invested in the commercial returns. So much to learn from listening to Rita. I hope no matter what role or what market you were in, you picked up some great insights from hearing from one of Ireland's best. So that's it for this episode. Thanks for listening and watching. That's What I Call Marketing. If you did enjoy, please do share, add comments with your feedback. You can get in touch and find all previous episodes on that'swhatIcallmarketing.com, or follow us on Instagram on That's What I Call Marketing, on Twitter at @that's_marketing. And now you can watch our episodes back on YouTube. Yes, you guessed it. That's What I Call Marketing. From me, Conor Byrne, until the next episode, thanks for listening or watching. Take care.